I still hear his voice before I see his face. Go on, Serena, Lucas said, smiling into the microphone, the crystal chandeliers above us throwing light across his teeth. Tell them the truth. Tell them how you're not really one of us. The gala froze. Forks hovered mid-air. A violin screeched as the musician missed a note. Every donor, every board member, every camera turned toward me like I was suddenly on trial. My younger brother stood beside me in his tailored black suit, confidence dripping from him, holding a thin white envelope between two fingers. A DNA testing company logo was stamped across the front. I felt my lungs forget how to work. Lucas laughed softly, shaking his head like he was disappointed in me. All these years, he said, louder now, playing the perfect daughter. Turns out you're just another man's mistake. A ripple moved through the room. Shock. Curiosity. Hunger. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father didn't look at me at all. I stared at the envelope, my heartbeat roaring in my ears, my skin buzzing like I was standing too close to live wires. I realized then that this wasn't a joke. This wasn't a slip of anger. This was planned. Lucas stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough that it felt intimate, cruel. I paid for the test myself, he whispered. Figured everyone deserved to know what you really are. The humiliation burned hotter than fear. Hotter than betrayal. Cameras zoomed in. Someone whispered my name like it was already a scandal. I could feel my entire life tilting, memories rearranging themselves into something darker. And in that moment, standing under gold lights with my brother smiling like he'd finally won, one thought sliced through me, cold and absolute. That was the moment I realized my own brother didn't just want the truth revealed. He wanted me erased. The silence after the gala didn't feel quiet. It felt watched. By the time I got home, my phone was vibrating like something alive. 27 notifications. 32. Then more. The Hale family WhatsApp group, silent for months, had exploded back to life. Mom, Lucas was wrong to do it publicly, but if the test is real, we need to talk. Aunt Marlene, this is embarrassing for the family. Dad, everyone calm down. Lucas is just emotional. Just emotional. I stood in my kitchen, heels still on, clutching the envelope Lucas had pressed into my palm before the cameras could catch it. My name was printed neatly across the front. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't open it. A new message popped up. Private this time. Lucas, I did you a favor tonight. Better to know now than live a lie. The audacity of it made my stomach turn. He had always spoken like that, like he was correcting a mistake, not creating one. Like my existence was an inconvenience he was finally brave enough to address. I didn't reply. I couldn't trust myself to type anything that wouldn't destroy what little control I had left. Instead, I opened Instagram. Someone had already posted a shaky clip of the moment he said another man's mistake. The caption read, "Gala turns into family drama flushed face." The comments were worse. Speculation. Jokes. Sympathy that felt sharp as glass. I refreshed once. Twice. Each time my chest tightened. My mother called. I let it ring. Then she texted, "Come home tomorrow. Your brother is hurting too." Hurting. I laughed out loud, a broken sound in an empty apartment. Lucas had always known how to perform pain when it suited him. Tears on cue. Anger framed as righteousness. And my parents, especially my mother, always rushed to cushion him, even if it meant pushing me aside. I finally opened the envelope. But before I could look inside, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was an email. No subject line. Just an attachment. A scanned report. Official letterhead. Dates. Numbers. And a single line highlighted in yellow. I stared at it, heart pounding, because suddenly the question wasn't whether Lucas was telling the truth. It was why he wanted the world to see it before I did. And that realization pressed down on me, heavy and terrifying, because it meant this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. When people ask me why that night at the gala shattered me so completely, I think back to our living room growing up, the beige carpet always vacuumed in perfect lines, the family photos arranged like proof of something wholesome. Proof we never actually lived. Lucas was the miracle. That's what Mom used to call him. My golden boy, she'd say, ruffling his hair while he soaked it in like sunlight. I was just there. The older one. The responsible one. The one who was supposed to understand. I learned early that understanding meant swallowing. At 7, I came home with a spelling bee ribbon, purple and frayed at the edges. I held it out to Mom like an offering. She glanced at it, smiled thinly, and said, "That's nice, Serena. Go wash up. Lucas has soccer practice." That same night, Dad brought home a cake because Lucas scored a single goal. Vanilla frosting. His favorite. My ribbon disappeared into a drawer I never opened again. Lucas noticed. He always noticed. When I was 10, he locked me out of the house during a thunderstorm because I wouldn't give him my handheld game. I banged on the door, rain soaking through my shirt, watching the lights glow warm inside. Mom opened it eventually, sighed, and said, "What did you do to upset your brother?" Lucas stood behind her, dry and smiling. That smile still visits me sometimes. At 12, I overheard them talking in the kitchen. Mom's voice was low. "Careful. She's too sensitive," she said. "Lucas needs more attention. He's fragile." Dad murmured something about balance. About priorities. No one noticed me standing in the hallway, barefoot, holding my breath like if I stayed quiet enough, I might disappear completely. The cruelty wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was subtle. A skipped parent-teacher meeting. A forgotten birthday until Lucas reminded them, by accident, of course. He'd tilt his head and say, "Oh, was that today?" Then he'd watch my face to see if it worked. One Christmas, we were 8 and 14. Lucas unwrapped a new laptop. I got socks. Grey. Practical. Mom laughed and said, "You're the easy one, Serena." Easy felt a lot like invisible. The worst part wasn't what my parents did. It was what Lucas learned from it. How to push just enough. How to cry when confronted. How to make me look like the problem without ever raising his voice. I remember one night, lying awake, listening to my parents argue softly about money, about stress, about how Lucas was so much pressure. I stared at the ceiling and promised myself I'd never need anyone the way he did. But there's one memory that still hurts in a way time hasn't dulled. I was 15. I'd made honor roll again. I stood at the dinner table, waiting for someone to say something. Lucas cut into his food, glanced up, and said casually, "Must be nice being Mom's backup plan." Everyone laughed. I did too. And that laugh still echoes in my chest, because that was the moment I learned how to disappear without leaving the room. College was the first place where my name wasn't followed by an explanation. I wasn't Lucas's sister or the easy one. I was just Serena. Sitting in a lecture hall with a chipped desk and flickering lights, I felt something unfamiliar settle into my chest. Space. Quiet. Possibility. I worked 2 jobs that first year, mornings at a campus cafe and nights shelving books at the library, my fingers always smelling like coffee and paper. Exhaustion followed me everywhere, but so did a strange pride. No one handed me anything. Every dollar in my bank app felt earned, like proof I existed. There were nights I cried silently in the dorm bathroom, forehead against cold tile, wondering why success still hurt. But every time I wanted to quit, I remembered how invisible I'd felt growing up. I refused to go back to that version of myself. That refusal became fuel. Grades climbed. Professors learned my name. One of them pulled me aside after class and said, "You have a sharp mind, Serena. Don't waste it." That sentence stayed with me longer than any praise from home ever had. My first real job came after graduation, a junior analyst position with a modest salary and long hours. I rented a tiny apartment with uneven floors and a window that rattled when buses passed. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. The first night there, I ate takeout on the floor and laughed out loud, alone, because no one could tell me I was taking up too much space. That laughter surprised me. It sounded strong. Financial independence didn't erase the past, but it softened its grip. I paid my own bills, bought my own furniture, fixed things myself or learned how. Each small victory stacked quietly. When my boss trusted me with a major project, my hands shook, not from fear, but from the realization that someone believed in me without conditions. That belief was addictive. Home visits were still complicated. Mom would glance at my clothes and ask how much they cost. Dad would nod, distracted. Lucas would lean back, arms crossed, and say things like, "Must be nice pretending you're better than us now." I'd smile and change the subject, but the tension lingered. Something in his eyes had shifted. The easy confidence was thinning, replaced by sharp jokes and forced laughter. The family group chat grew quieter when I shared good news. Messages went unread. Screenshots sat there like unanswered questions. Once, after I posted about a promotion, Lucas replied with a laughing emoji and, "Careful, Serena. Don't forget where you came from." My phone buzzed with silence after that. It felt deliberate. Still, I kept going. I started saving. I started planning. I started believing that my life could be more than survival. Hope crept in slowly, careful not to break anything. But beneath it, pain still pulsed, a reminder of everything I'd endured to get here. The last time I visited, I caught Lucas watching me from the doorway, his jaw tight, his smile gone. For the first time, I didn't see amusement or superiority in his face. I saw calculation. And that was when I understood something had changed. By the time my life started moving forward, Lucas Hales began to stall in ways he pretended not to notice. I heard it first through half-truths. Mom would say he was taking time to figure things out, which meant he'd quit another job. Dad would sigh about the economy, which somehow only ever affected Lucas. When I visited, the couch smelled like energy drinks and stale excuses, and Lucas was always there, scrolling on his phone, telling anyone who'd listen that he was between opportunities. The tension showed up in small moments. He'd ask what I earned now, then laugh too loudly when I answered. He borrowed money and forgot to pay it back, then hinted I was stingy when I stopped offering. One night, I overheard him telling Dad that my promotion wasn't that impressive and that I probably got it because my boss liked me. The words lodged under my skin. Why did my success need an explanation that made me smaller? Things got uglier online. Our family WhatsApp group, once filled with holiday plans and blurry photos, became a stage Lucas controlled. When I shared a picture from a work conference, he replied with, "Careful, Serena doesn't want anyone knowing she thinks she's better than us." A few laughing emojis followed, from cousins who didn't know the context, from relatives who never asked. I stared at my screen, pulse pounding, wondering when my life became a punchline. Lucas started rewriting our history in public. He told people I'd abandoned the family. He told an aunt I was ashamed of them. He hinted that my apartment was paid for by help. When I confronted him privately, he smirked and said, "Relax. If it's not true, why are you so mad?" That question haunted me. Why did defending myself feel like guilt? At home, my parents took his side without saying they were. "You know how Lucas is," Mom would say, which meant I should be quiet. Dad warned me not to provoke him by posting achievements. The message was clear. My growth was the problem. His decline was something to protect. The lies escalated. I found out he'd told friends I was in debt. He hinted to relatives that my job was unstable. Someone forwarded me a screenshot where Lucas wrote, "She's not as perfect as she pretends. Just wait." My stomach twisted. Wait for what? Every time my phone buzzed, my chest tightened with dread. Then came the day I realized he wasn't just jealous. He was desperate. I overheard him on a late-night call, voice low, urgent, saying my name like it was a strategy. Papers rustled. He laughed, sharp and excited, and said, "This will fix everything." I stood in the hallway, heart hammering, understanding too late that Lucas wasn't just trying to embarrass me anymore. He was planning something dangerous. The betrayal didn't come quietly. It detonated in public, where silence isn't an option and humiliation echoes. I was standing in a glass-walled conference room downtown, sunlight pouring over polished tables, when my phone started vibrating non-stop. Not texts. Calls. Missed calls stacking like dominoes. Then an email slid across my screen with a subject line that made my vision blur. "Urgent, allegations regarding your conduct." By the time I opened it, my manager was already looking at me differently. Not angry. Worse. Cautious. The email claimed I had falsified credentials on a major project and misused confidential data. It cited anonymous internal sources. It attached screenshots, emails I didn't recognize, documents with my name typed neatly at the bottom like a signature I'd never signed. My mouth went dry. The room felt smaller. Someone coughed. I heard my own heartbeat louder than the city outside. They suspended me that afternoon. "Just while we investigate," HR said, eyes avoiding mine. As if suspension doesn't scream guilt even when you're innocent. As if reputations pause and wait politely. I walked out carrying a box of desk items that suddenly felt like evidence against me. In the elevator, my reflection looked unfamiliar, pale, stunned, hollowed out. The real blow landed an hour later. A legal notice arrived by email and certified mail at the same time. Formal language. Cold fonts. A threat of civil action tied to the same allegations. My hands shook so badly I had to sit on the kitchen floor to read it. The sender's attorney name looked familiar. Too familiar. I'd seen it on Lucas's laptop weeks earlier when he'd bragged about talking to someone smart. My phone buzzed again. The family WhatsApp group exploded. Screenshots of the allegations. Questions wrapped in concern that felt like knives. Mom typed, "Serena, tell us this isn't true." Dad wrote nothing. Lucas finally chimed in with a single line, "I tried to warn her." The implication settled like poison. He positioned himself as the reluctant whistleblower, the brave one protecting the family name. I called him. Straight to voicemail. I texted. No reply. I drove to my parents' house, heart pounding, rehearsing explanations that wouldn't matter. When I walked in, Lucas was already there, sitting calmly at the table, hands folded like a man waiting to be congratulated. He didn't look surprised to see me. He looked prepared. "You embarrassed us," Mom said before I could speak. Lucas sighed softly, shaking his head as if he'd expected this pain. "I didn't want it to happen like this," he said, eyes glossy, voice practiced. "But she left me no choice." I stared at him, searching for a crack, a tell, something human. There was nothing. Just resolve. That night, alone, I replayed every moment. The documents. The timing. The lawyer. The whispers. The way Lucas had smiled when he thought I couldn't hear. My chest ached with the weight of it. The grief of realizing the truth wasn't just ugly, it was deliberate. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't jealousy spilling over. As I sat on the floor, legal papers spread around me like wreckage, one thought finally settled, heavy and undeniable. Lucas did this on purpose. The internet doesn't wait for the truth. It feeds on fragments. It started with a notification from a stranger. Then another. Then hundreds. My phone buzzed non-stop, the screen lighting up like an alarm I couldn't silence. When I finally opened Instagram, my name was already trending in a small, vicious way. Local hashtags, gossip pages, anonymous accounts with bias like Truthseeker and Justice First. Lucas had gone first. He posted an Instagram story at 2:14 a.m. A black screen. White text. "Some betrayals come from your own blood." I stayed quiet for too long. Next slide, a cropped screenshot of the legal notice, my name highlighted in neon yellow. Next, a blurry childhood photo of us, me older, hand on his shoulder. Caption, "I trusted her." Within hours, edited clips appeared. A short video from an old office seminar, me mid-sentence, paused on a frame where my expression looked sharp, almost cruel. Someone added dramatic music. Another clip stitched it with Lucas's shaker voice story, recorded on his phone, eyes red, saying, "I never wanted to do this to my sister, but lies destroy families." The comments were merciless. "She always looked fake. Money changes people. Feel bad for the brother. Lock her up." Then the WhatsApp screenshots leaked. Our family group chat, messages stripped of context, timestamps cut. One screenshot showed Mom asking, "Serena, what did you do?" Another showed me typing, "I need time." Lucas posted it with a caption, "Silence says everything." He didn't post the messages before that, the ones where he baited me, accused me, cornered me. He didn't post the ones after, where I begged him to talk to me directly. Friends stopped replying. A colleague unfollowed me. Someone I barely knew posted an Instagram story, "If the allegations are true, this is disgusting." No question mark. Just judgment. I tried to explain once. A single comment under a post. "This is not true. The evidence is fabricated." It vanished under a wave of laughing emojis and replies, "That's what they all say." The world shrank to my screen. Each refresh hurt. Each notification felt like another hand pushing my head underwater. I stopped going out. I stopped answering calls. I watched my reputation disintegrate in real time, strangers deciding who I was in 15-second clips. Late that night, an account tagged me in a reel. It was titled "The Truth About Serena Hale." My photo. Red arrows. Bold text. "Scammer? Fraud?" Millions of views climbing. The comments scrolled faster than I could read. I felt something inside me finally crack, not loudly, but completely. I closed the app. The room was silent except for my breathing. Shallow. Uneven. I realized then what staying quiet had cost me. Silence hadn't protected me. It had handed Lucas the microphone. I wiped my face, opened my laptop, and began organizing everything. The real emails, the original files, the timestamps, the recordings I'd been too afraid to use. For the first time since this began, my hands stopped shaking. I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. I didn't wake up angry anymore. That scared me more than rage ever could. Anger had burned hot and fast. Sleepless nights, shaking hands, replaying comments in my head. But one morning, I woke up calm. Empty. Focused. Like something inside me had finally clicked into place. I stopped defending myself online. I stopped explaining. Instead, I started collecting. The first thing I pulled was the CCTV footage from the house. Dad had always insisted on cameras, for security, he'd say. Lucas used to joke that we were living in a prison. Funny how prisons record everything. I logged into the old system late at night, my laptop light reflecting off my tired face. I scrubbed through weeks of footage. Hours of nothing. Shadows. Then I saw it. Lucas. In my room. My breath caught. He was rifling through my drawer. Opening envelopes. Photographing documents with his phone. He paused, smiled to himself, and slid something into his pocket. I replayed it 3 times. Then I saved it. Next came the bank records. It took longer. Forms. Calls. A lawyer's receptionist who spoke in that flat, professional tone. When the statements finally arrived, my fingers trembled, not from fear, but from confirmation. Transfers I hadn't made. Dates that matched Lucas's emergencies. Money moving out, then reappearing in an account under a slightly altered name. Not mine. His. I recorded my screen while cross-checking every transaction. I labeled files carefully, methodically. No emotion. Just facts. Then the audio. I remembered the night he'd cornered me in the kitchen, his voice low, venomous. I'd hit record without thinking, my phone face down on the counter. I hadn't listened to it since. Now, I did. Lucas's voice filled the room. Don't play innocent, Serena. You always think you're smarter than everyone. A pause. Then softer. Dangerous. If you don't back off, I'll make sure they never look at you the same again. I closed my eyes. Click. Saved. The lawyer leaned back in his chair when I finished. He didn't interrupt once. When I was done, he exhaled slowly. This, he said, tapping the folder, is not a misunderstanding. This is calculated. Something loosened in my chest. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't imagining it. I walked out of his office lighter. Straighter. That night, I created one final folder. I named it simply, Truth. Inside it, everything sat quietly, waiting. I sent one message in the family group chat after weeks of silence. We need to talk. Tomorrow. All of us. Lucas replied with a thumbs up emoji. That was when I knew he had no idea what was coming. The living room felt smaller with everyone in it. Too quiet. The air thick, like before a storm. Mom sat rigid on the sofa, hands clenched in her lap. Dad stood near the window, arms crossed, avoiding my eyes. Lucas lounged in the armchair, confident, almost bored. Well, he said, smirking. Ready to finally admit it. I didn't sit. I connected my laptop to the TV. Lucas frowned. What's that supposed to be? I hit play. The screen showed grainy footage, him, in my room, opening my drawer. His smirk froze. Mom leaned forward. Lucas, she whispered. It's not what it looks like, he said quickly, standing up. She's manipulating. I switched clips. Bank statements. Highlighted transfers. Dates. Names. Dad's face drained of color. Those accounts, his voice cracked. Lucas, answer me. Lucas laughed, too loudly. You're really doing this? After everything? I played the audio. His own voice echoed through the room. Threatening. Cold. Unmistakable. Silence fell like a physical weight. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad sank into the chair behind him. No one spoke. Even Lucas had stopped breathing for a second. I didn't plan revenge, I said quietly. My voice surprised me, steady. I planned the truth. Lucas's eyes darted around, searching for an exit. For denial. For rescue. There's more, I added, fingers hovering over the keyboard. But I don't think I need to play it. He slumped back, finally looking small. Mom started crying. Not loudly. Just broken, stunned sobs. Dad stared at the floor, shame etched into every line of his face. Lucas swallowed. Hard. It's over, he whispered. For the first time, he was right. The consequences didn't arrive loudly. They arrived officially. The first envelope came by courier, thick, cream-colored, stamped with authority. I watched Lucas open it at the dining table, his fingers suddenly clumsy, confidence leaking out of him line by line. Legal language. Dates. Charges. Fraud. Identity misuse. Evidence attached. He looked up at Dad. You're going to help me, right? Dad didn't answer. The second wave came online. The same platforms that had torn me apart turned their teeth on him. Screenshots spread, bank records, clips from the CCTV, audio snippets that people slowed down and replayed. His smug tone became a meme. His threats turned into captions. Friends vanished first. The loud ones. The ones who cheered him on. One by one, they unfollowed. Deleted photos. Distanced themselves. His phone stopped lighting up. I watched him refresh his notifications obsessively, like silence itself might crack and apologize. At the hearing, Lucas sat smaller than I'd ever seen him. No dramatic speeches. No clever twists. Just facts. Documents. Timelines. The judge barely looked at me when she spoke. Her eyes stayed on him. Community service. Financial penalties. A permanent mark that would follow him longer than his ego ever had. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed, but not for me. For him. Do you regret it? Someone shouted. Lucas's mouth opened. Closed. He glanced at our parents, desperate. Mom cried into Dad's shoulder. Not for me. For the son she could no longer protect. Dad finally looked at me then. Really looked. His voice broke when he spoke. I should have listened. I didn't nod. I didn't smile. I just breathed. That night, alone in my apartment, I screamed into a pillow. Then I laughed. Then I cried until my chest hurt. It wasn't joy. It was release. Main character, Serena Hale. Younger brother, Lucas Hale. Parents, Margaret Hale, mother, Richard Hale, father. Peace didn't come as fireworks. It came as quiet. Mornings where my phone didn't scare me. Evenings where silence felt safe instead of heavy. I redecorated my apartment. Nothing dramatic. Plants. Light curtains. A desk by the window. I framed my degree, not as proof, but as closure. Mom called once. Her voice softer. Careful. I'm learning, she said. I let the pause sit. Some wounds don't need reopening to heal. I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I deserved clarity. I learned how shame had been handed to me like inheritance. How survival had shaped my spine stronger than approval ever could. One afternoon, I ran into Lucas at a distance. He looked older, smaller, real. Our eyes met for half a second. I felt nothing. And that was everything. I'm building again now, not to prove, not to compete, not to be chosen. Just to live. Some stories end with forgiveness. Mine ended with freedom. And as I locked my door that night, city lights flickering like a promise beyond the glass, one truth settled gently into my bones. I was never another man's mistake. I was my own beginning.